I'm not promising shortcuts, but instead a smarter approach, though to a degree it would be brute force testing." He looked at her in anger, and yet respected her abilities more than he was willing to admit aloud. She was one of the best minds he had ever come across. She had no interest in him, per se, even though he had offered all his fortune and marriage. That was a discussion she had stopped on all fronts. It was clear that another male had claimed her heart and then left her in his death. The gentleman gathered his wits, mentally reviewed the alternatives, and recognized that his options were limited. He looked at her intensely and stated, "You will get your money. You can return to my labs with me and get started immediately. Anything and everything you need will be provided." Her temper almost showed, but she checked it as she retorted, "I will work in my own space, sir. I will not have you standing over me and pressuring me, as you are even attempting now. We tried that before, and your efforts failed. You went off in a snit, and look what you accomplished. If you place those sorts of constraints on me, I will do nothing, and you will die a painful death." Her voice softened as she added, "If you let me work, I believe I can find a salvation for you, as well as a long-range solution. Your experimentation has resulted in 2 goals, with one being more critical now than the original." He looked almost beaten. She reached down to pick up the beautiful orchid, and as he resignedly nodded, he reached to take her hand. She extended her hand with the flower into his open palm, almost relieved that they'd actually reached agreement. He covered her hand with his other hand. Before she could react, she felt the hypodermic needle slide into her skin. Her eyes flew open, and she looked at him with pure hate as she yanked her hand away and dropped the flower. She inspected the puncture and blood that now glistened on her ivory skin. She stared at the orchid now, realizing it was an assassin's weapon.